Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro announces the creation of the National Scientific Center on Ozone, aiming to study its benefits against the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 tally in the United States has surpassed 6.5 million cases of infection. In Nepal, landslides triggered by torrential rains killed at least 12 people in the South African country on Sunday. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmeiro. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro announced on Sunday the creation of the National Scientific Center on Ozone in order to research its positive effects on health, especially in the fight against COVID-19.
I have decided to found in Venezuela a National Ozone Science Center and all its health uses. We have all the treatments for asymptomatic patients. We also treat and hospitalize them, which is not done in any other country worldwide. Venezuela is the only country in the world that does this.
Venezuela will kick off its annual vaccination program starting in September, allowing the health system to monitor the process amid the pandemic, as the COVID-19 Russian vaccine is expected to arrive in the country on December this year. President Maduro therefore emphasized that in Venezuela all vaccines are free for all.
In Venezuela, all vaccines that protect the people are applied for free to our children, to the adults. When the vaccine against the coronavirus arrives to Venezuela, will be total and absolutely free for all the Venezuelan population.
Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, gave an update on the country's COVID-19 figures this Sunday, announcing 25 new imported cases for a total of 910 infections and 8 new deaths.
Today we are registering 885 cases of community transmission throughout Venezuela. Currently, 7,475 patients are asymptomatics. 2,948 have mild symptoms, 840 have moderate symptoms, and 148 people in intensive care units.
In Bolivia, presidential campaigning continues in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Movement towards Socialism Party candidates Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca are currently leading the polls with 23.6%, while former President Carlos Mesa remains in second place with 17%, followed by the de facto President Janine Áñez with 10%. The MAS has announced that their main objective is to reestablish the country's economy and promote social projects, as well as to restore democracy in the country. Residents of the Pantanal wetlands in Brazil's Mato Grosso state are racing to put out flames that have consumed thousands of miles of rainforest. Preliminary figures from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro shows that over 15,000 square kilometers have been consumed by the fires since the start of August, far surpassing the previous fire season record from 2005. For weeks, lines of fires have swept across the dried-out swamplands, encroaching on several national parks. In particular, the Encontros das Aguas State Park, which boasted the largest number of jaguars in the world, has been nearly destroyed. Mobilizations against police brutality continued in Colombia on Sunday. Citizens in Bogotá gathered for a march to Bolivar Plaza, condemning the recent murders of at least 13 people at the hands of the police. Sunday marked the 5th day of the large-scale protest after a video spread on social media showing a man being tortured by police hours before he died in their custody. Earlier on Sunday, Bogotá Mayor Claudia López led an official act for forgiveness and reconciliation, asking citizens to move past the murders and renew their trust in the police. Meanwhile, in France, Colombian migrants took to the streets on Paris to condemn police brutality. They gathered close to the Eiffel Tower with banners denouncing the murders of civilians. In the United Kingdom, activists also marched in support of the Colombian people. They displayed a list of names on the white banner representing Colombian citizens killed due to violence in the country. Protesters also rally in the United States city of Miami, denouncing the impunity of paramilitary groups and the indifference with which the Ivan Duque administration has responded to the violence. They also displayed body bags to demand justice for those killed in Colombia. And we'll take a short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Johns Hopkins University has announced that the United States surpassed 6.5 million positive COVID-19 cases, further aggravating the country's health crisis. The institute registered 39,000 new COVID-19 cases for a total of more than 6.5 million total contagions, which could put the country's health system on the verge of collapse. The university also confirmed 693 new deaths, increasing the death toll to more than 193,000. The Guyana Human Rights Association is warning the new government to stay out of Venezuela's politics. The advice comes amidst a planned visit to the South American country by the United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo next week. Political commenters believe the U.S. is trying to leverage Georgetown as a base to attack Venezuela. The association said the timing was ominous given general elections scheduled for November and December in the U.S. and Venezuela, respectively. And Caracas has been grappling with an intensification of military and economic attacks from Washington. On Friday, government officials announced the arrest of a former U.S. Marine suspected of spying on national oil companies. In May, 2 U.S. citizens were among 40 mercenaries detained while trying to capture President Nicolás Maduro in what became known as Operation Gideon. 2 months later, Guyana's former president, David Granger, rejected a request by the U.S. to use the nation's medium-wave radio frequencies to broadcast the Voice of America to Venezuela. It is unclear what position will be taken by the Irfan Ali administration. Antigua and Barbuda calypso legend Sir Rupert Philo, known by his sobriquet the mighty swallow, has died at age 78. Swallow passed away on Friday, surrounded by family at his home in Willikies. The Calypsonian was suffering from a prolonged illness. Swallow is 4-time Calypso monarch and 5-time Road March winner in his home country. He was awarded the Order of Merit Gold and the Grand Cross of Princely Heritage in recognition of his sterling contribution to the Calypso art form. Rescue workers have started recovering the first bodies from a mine accident in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. 50 people are feared dead after an artisanal mine collapsed due to the heavy rains in South Kivu province on Friday. According to authorities, the mine's tunnels were filled with water and miners were trapped inside. Rescue teams have been searching for the missing miners for the past 2 days. Mali's opposition has rejected a transitional deal proposed by the ruling military junta. The opposition movement has accused the military leaders of manipulating the charter to monopolize power. Opposition leaders also said they are against the appointment of a military person as leader of the transitional government. The junta and opposition representatives had previously agreed on an 18-month transition government after a 3-day forum which ended on Saturday.
This is deplorable because there were many points of consideration made and commented on during committee work, and that were highlighted in committee reports, but when the final document was presented to the plenary, we felt this was not the case.
The South African Communist Party said the impact of the coronavirus pandemic has exacerbated the social and economic inequalities in the country. In a communique published at the end of its two-day virtual summit, the party's Central Committee said that the pandemic has worsened the pre-existing crisis of high poverty levels, unemployment, and other social ills. The party also denounced the recent looting of public funds, saying that rampant corruption and unethical behavior across all sectors has had a devastating effect on the livelihoods and survival of millions of citizens.
There have also been outrageous negative features as well. None more so than the looting of public resources intended for dealing with the health crisis, like the up to 800% markups on health equipment by rent-seeking tenderpreneurs in a number of instances, or the theft of personal protective equipment, PPEs. These are actions that the World Health Organization's Director General has rightfully described as akin to murder. Unfortunately, these wanton acts of corruption are just one more particularly awful example of the rampant scourge of corruption and unethical behavior across much of the public and private sectors.
As several African countries expand COVID-19 testing, the World Health Organization and the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are also stepping up efforts to assist in the fight against the COVID-19. They have launched a network of laboratories to reinforce genomic sequencing of the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes the COVID-19. 12 specialized and regional reference laboratories in the network will provide data analysis and other technical support to countries where they are located and neighboring countries as well. Diesel stations in the Libyan city of Benghazi have closed down as the country faces a severe fuel crisis. Long queues were seen outside fueling stations of trucks waiting to purchase diesel. Distributors have attributed the shortage of the delay of marine tankers that bring fuel into the country. The delays have also forced Rainfreeze to suspend operations.
We as ordinary citizens are hurt by the diesel crisis. Badly hurt, and now the diesel dealers are controlling the situation, filling containers, cans, and everything with diesel. And they are selling those containers. Someone called me and told me that he was ready to buy a diesel container for 500 or 600 Libyan dinars. He can buy it with no problem, but others cannot.
Mauritius witnessed its largest protest rally in 40 years as citizens took to the streets to demonstrate against the government's handling of a recent oil spill. About 25,000 people marched in the city of Magdeburg for the second time in a month, calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Pravin Gordhan and his government. The demonstrators blamed the government of mishandling the oil spill caused by 1,000-ton Japanese fuel tank, which shipwrecked off the island's coast back in July. The spill has inflicted damage on the Indian Ocean archipelago, which depends on its coastline for fishing and ecotourism. And we have more news coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Rescue operations were held this Sunday in Nepal's district of Sindhu Palchak, followed by torrential rains that triggered deadly landslides in the region. The natural disaster that swept away homes left 12 people killed and at least 21 missing. Residents and rescue workers joined efforts to search bodies of the landslides victims. Nepali government official Murari Wasti said the latest fatalities took the death toll from landslides and flash floods in the June-September monsoon season to 314. At least 111 people remain missing and 160 have been injured. Rural tourism in China has picked up speed over the last few months, according to the Ministry of Culture and Tourism of the country. Figures show that in the first quarter of 2020, the nation's rural tourism income dropped 77.1% from a year earlier, while in the second quarter the trend turned around with 148.8% month-to-month growth. Between July and August, both the number of tourists traveling to rural areas and income obtained exceeded 90% of that in previous years. The news comes as the Asian giant has continued to steer away from the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. A prominent Bahraini cleric has rejected the decision by the Gulf nation to normalize relations with Israel. He has therefore appealed to people across the Middle East to resist attempts by the region's rulers to deepen ties with Tel Aviv. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that the government will impose a 3-week nationwide lockdown following a surge in coronavirus cases.
Today in the government meeting, we reached a decision on a strict lockdown plan for 3 weeks, with an option that it will be extended. But as of now, we have decided that the lockdown will last until the end of Sukkot. On Thursday, they waved a red flag. Health ministry executives and hospital managers have warned us that death rates are forcing the application of immediate measures. A part of the medical staff and the hospitals are overwhelmed.
Pakistani citizens have rallied against the way authorities handle a gun rape case. Women took to the streets to denounce that rape has been normalized and that the cases are continuously ignored by officials. On Wednesday, a woman said she was raped by multiple men in front of her 2 children when her car ran out of fuel near the eastern city of Lahore. The city's police said she faced a backlash after he seemed to blame the victim because she was driving at night without a male companion.
So I'm here to protest for all the women of Pakistan. We've been facing a lot of rape cases that have actually been normalized by Pakistan. They've been continuously ignored by our government on and on again. We see the government coming out for whatever the mullahs want to say. They come out and they protest and the government just listens to them.
It's the most difficult thing, the fact that I need to think twice before deciding whether I want to go somewhere or not is just beyond me, because this is my country too, these are my streets, this is my road just as much as it is of any man, and I don't see them thinking twice before they leave or they do anything.
So I'm here
Open Arms rescued a 4th ship this month with dozens of migrants that were stranded in the Mediterranean Sea on Friday. The NGO has now close to 300 rescued migrants. According to the NGO's founder, Oscar Camps, the migrants are in a state of severe dehydration, confusion, and extreme weakness after several days adrift without food or water. The International Organization for Migration says over 1,000 people have died trying to migrate during the first half of 2020. Health workers in Belgium have taken the government to task on its failure to adequately fund the health sector. Thousands of workers staged protests in Brussels against the underfunding of the healthcare system. They denounced that most caregivers have stopped working due to lack of personal protective equipment in the country.
You have to know that there are many caregivers who are tired. There are caregivers who are in burnout. There are caregivers who have stopped working because they were confronted with a lot of suffering during the COVID crisis. So if we had to relive what we experienced in March, it would be unbearable.
Several people have been arrested in Melbourne, Australia, following protests against the COVID-19 lockdown. Australia has over 26,000 COVID-19 cases and over 800 deaths. The anti-restriction movement has been gaining steam across the world as countries like Germany, Poland, and the United States are seeing more citizens express skepticism about the virus and the measures put in place to combat it. The movement is made up of numbers of groups from self-declared free thinkers to anti-vaccine campaigners, conspiracy theorists, and far-right activists.
No one is enjoying the reality we face, but none of us have the option of ignoring the reality that we face. We cannot open up now and stay open. It would not be safe. It would not be smart. It's the challenge we face.
At least 33 people have died so far as a result of wildfires ravaging the west coast of the United States. At least 12 states have been affected by the fires, which are being intensified by a severe drought. Authorities say they expect the death toll to rise as firefighters haven't been able to reach some of the most affected areas. Images of the fires shocked the world last week as many cities in the west coast saw the sky turn orange and citizens reported large amounts of smoke coming down from the mountains. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Thank you for watching.